Hey guys, and welcome to Little Blackbird 91. We are talking today, about the impact of fatherhood on us becoming men. Yes, I wanted to do some more male, if you want to call it, orientated content to help young men and young boys, uncles, whatever, nephews, sons in their growth. So I've decided to bring some people ahead of myself today, and you know their faces already, but I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. I've missed them on the channel, so it's good to have the brothers back. But I'm gonna let Curtis go first, and then let PG introduce himself. Kurt,
Yes, bro. Well, it's been too long, innit?
you already know.
Usually known as This Is Marriage UK, but today I'm just Curtis because we're just dealing with the men. I've got a couple of platforms out there. We're looking at relationships, helping people navigate the journey of how to have their relationships well. That's what we've been doing for the past, it's coming up to 7 years. And I've been assisted in that process with the experience of my brother-in-law on this side, Pastor Benga. So yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate the platform, bro, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Love that stuff. Love that stuff. PG, talk to them, man.
Hey man, my name is Benga, known as PG. I'm a preacher. I run a few non-profits. I'm married. I do relationship and dating coaching as well, and I'm also a consultant. So I wear a lot of hats, but just a blessing to be part of this again. And I think it's been a while since the brothers got together just to share. So it's a great opportunity just to be here again, talk about a very poignant topic. So I'm blessed to
Love
be here.
that. Love that. Well, last few weeks, I've been talking to the audience on a Tuesday night, deep in the middle of the night for UK people, about the impact of having a father in my life and what that meant to me growing up, and what are some of the lessons I have learned. So I decided to gather you two because I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about your own experiences with having a father or not having a father, and how that actually impacted you growing up, in becoming a man, because we all grew up in the London areas. It's a very interesting place to grow up in as a black male. So wanted to kind of get you guys experience in terms of growing up and trying to find your identity as a man. What were the kind of things you were facing along that road? Kurt, I know you're strong on these points, so I'm gonna let you go first. What was your kind of upbringing, and how did that impact you in terms of growing into a man? What would you even consider growing into a man when you were younger? What would you think what was your viewpoint at that point in time?
I mean, there's no quick way to do this, right? Growing up as a black West Indian, a child of the Windrush generation, the generation that came over on the boats, or the Windrush from the West Indies, invited here to streets paved with gold, with a wealth of opportunity, coming from a country that's been colonized for a very long time, hundreds of years, left by the Commonwealth through its independence to rot. We've been marginalized in many ways, and we came here. We were met with racism, discrimination, right? And that's the West Indian narrative until recently, where things have started to change. Just started to change, but the problems are still there. So when I say that to you, I grew up with my grandmother, who was one of those women who came here. And most West Indian families, they came here separately, that the husband would come before the wife, or vice versa, and work and prepare the way. And so in the light of this, the mindset is struggle. From long before I was born, to my grandmother coming here and teaching that mindset to my mom, and my dad's mom teaching that mindset to him: struggle, just get by. That's the mindset. It has to fit in this little box here. And they've passed it on to me. So when I'm growing up now, manhood wasn't explained to me. I had to just observe it for what it was. That's the only way to make sense of it, was just to see it and then try to mimic the parts I like, mimic the parts that make me feel strong, in the hope that I would hit the jackpot somewhere down the line. And I think that being a West Indian growing up, I'm born in the mid-70s. And then also my adulthood was coming to fruit in the 90s. In London, we're met with, in England, a very kind of covert level of racism, more overt with the police at the time. A lot's changed, but there's still problems there. I've been taught how to behave and comply. And so manhood was about survival. Manhood was about not getting in trouble. Manhood was about just doing as you're told. That was me. Saying that, as I take off that coat, I'm causing trouble. You know, since George Floyd, black people, especially West Indians, I speak for the West Indians more so because I'm of that descent. We've been sitting back and watching and saying, well, we were telling you this from time. Now black people are speaking up and we're really, is it back a bit? Yeah. Let me just adjust this. I've just been told to adjust everything. Yeah. Since George Floyd, we're actually looking at and evaluating now what we've been doing all these years. So my journey is unmasking itself as we go. But I'm teaching my son, you will not do manhood the way I did it. And I would love to go into it as I pass the baton on to my brother. I'm teaching my son that the way that I was made to do manhood and growing up and my conception, he mustn't go through that. He must just learn from that. So he was born on a different step of the ladder. And he must excel. He must go past me. I'll leave that there for now.
Wow.
There's more to say, but you know.
Yeah, I know. PG, go for it.
Man, that's deep, man. That was powerful, brother, man. I guess for me, I came over to this country. I grew up with a single mother, only child on my mother's side. And I've got I think about 12 brothers and sisters on my father's side.
That's a lot.
That's deep, right? You know, my older sister found me on Facebook about 5 years ago. That's how deep it is.
Wow.
But grew up with a single mother. Came over to the UK when I was about 9 years old. Wanted to go back home because I'm in a strange land. You know, I came over it. Mum was at work. She would work 4 different jobs. Would never really see her. You know, no men around. You know, there was no one to show. I mean, when I was in Africa, I grew up a little bit with my grandfather, but when I came over, literally all the male role models were disappeared. We didn't have any male friends, or my mother didn't have any male friends. The only people around my mother were other single, broken women that just came over from Africa trying to survive. So that impacted a lot of, I guess, me being molded. It was just at that very young age. I became angry at men because I didn't have a father around. I became very upset when I see the kids in school, especially the white kids in school, and their fathers were around. They'll pick them up from school. You know, I was saying to my wife the other day, there was not one day when my mom picked me up from school. She couldn't. She was working. No one picked me up from school. You get into a fight, you go back the next day. And I couldn't make too much trouble because I was an illegal immigrant for many years. You know, I just didn't. I couldn't afford to get arrested and sent back to Nigeria. You know,
That's
no
real,
father,
bro.
no
That's real.
protection. You know, the deep traumas, right? The deep
That's
traumas.
real.
You know, I had a very deep African accent. I had a stutter. I didn't have anything growing up. I didn't know what a man was like. I didn't know what a man was expected. And growing up through formative years, I got involved in gangs because, you know, that gave me some kind of male compatriots that I can roll with. And I got involved in some very dangerous and very sinister activities for about 7 years of my life. You know, it took to the point where another man almost took my life at the age of 21 that I had to reconsider. And that was not the first attempt in my life. There's been other attempts in my life previously. that I realized that, you know, I want better for my children. You know, we have to break this curse. You know, I feel like it was a curse, and he had to be broken. And fast forward, there we are right now. Me and my wife, we're blessed with 3 sons. So I've got a lot of responsibilities. You know, I've got to raise 3 sons. I guess the only difference for me raising them and where I was raised in London by a single mother is that I raised my children not in London. I raised my children in Kent. So it's a different kind of upbringing. They don't know what I knew. You know, they will never be exposed to what I was exposed to. They'll never touch what I touched. And my job is to impact their lives. And I've always told them, if they mess about, I'm sending them to the army. You know, if I can't deal with them, the army will deal with them. So that's me right there.
He said there's consequences out here, just to let you know.
Come on.
You got it easy with me, boy.
Hey.
Hey, nothing wrong with that at all. Discipline is
Come
needed
on,
in the
man.
household.
Come on, man.
You know, and I love how you guys have started, because you started off strong. We've spoken about you know, the adversities, even growing up, and the difficulties growing up. I think Curtis, you also said something, which is that manhood was not spoken of or explained, it was observed. So I was wondering, whether you're able to break down what you might have observed as manhood that you took on for yourself at the time, whether it was good or bad. What were some of those observations that you took on and said, you know, this is what I think for me is my manhood or my male identity? Some of the things that you might have observed.
It's interesting you say that. I was trying to make sense of it. So I'm going to just go into a little bit of what I saw and explain that through what was happening at the time. So I'm very reflective. I've always asked myself questions as far back as I can remember. I will ask, what is the meaning of that? Do I want to do it? Yes or no? No, don't do it. Yeah, let's do it. So I wouldn't just take things on. I'm far too conscious from a very young age. So my dad was, and all he could have been at the time, was a builder. He'd leave for work at 7 o'clock. Or a lot of the time he did the school run whilst my mum went to work. And he would drop us off and wait in the school. Interesting now. Jamaican man, came here when he was 10. So he's had a detachment from his mum, his main caregiver, right? But he comes here and he tries to make it, does really well in school, but he's a black man, so he's stuck. Okay. He takes us to school for most of our primary years. But, sorry about the call. He's limited in his connection with us. So having my dad around and showing up in front of my dad was the thing. But he never really kissed me or gave me a hug or said, you're doing really well. He never gave me none of that. He was just there. Now, the thing is, my dad was there. He provided. And then after school, he would pick us up. And when we were old enough, we'd go to grandma's up the road, but he'd pick us up and go back to work. Sometimes it was so tough, he would take us back to work with him to finish a job for 2-3 hours. And then we'd go home, the day would start again. That was it. Strange. But my dad was there. What did I learn from my dad? First, you have to be there. So I have 3 children. Yeah, 3 children. And I mean physically, because we've got another brother in Novenga, and as much as he's got his children and different parents for him, he's there as much as he can be. He is one of the biggest, for me, inspirations of being a father. He puts in more effort than all of us here. Okay? But my dad was only there physically in the early days. So reflecting, I recognized that he was only going to be able to show me what he could show me. Because if you're working 12 hours a day, you know what I mean? And it's tight financially. What can you show me other than that. Now, he's coming from a different place from me, remember? So when I've got my 3 children, nearly 19, 14 and 8, girl, boy, girl. One thing I know is that subconsciously, just be there. I'd love to go deeper. We've got time, I guess. Just be there. And I've been there for my kids every single day.
100. Wow.
That's the starting point.
Come on, man.
The other stuff we'll get into, but yeah, that's me so far.
Whew.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that, sir. PG, what are you saying?
I mean, talking about presence, obviously, you guys clearly know that my father wasn't there. And, as I said, it's a curse that I always want to break, because I remember, especially when our boys, when they were growing up, especially the older 2. So our boys are 12, 9, and 3. And the older 2, when they were growing up and we were changing the nappies, and because when we had our first son, after 2 months, when it was 2 months off, 3-4 months old, my wife went back to work because I lost my job. So for the next sort of 1 year, in fact, that was the last time I actually worked for anybody, because after that, I started my own organizations, my own businesses and stuff like that. But at a time where I was the main caregiver at home, my wife went to work. All right. And, that from an African perspective is not a done thing. What are you doing? But, when we got married, we were intentional about ensuring that we have our own culture. It worked for us at that time. It worked for us. I got a chance to be with my son. I took him to the baby clubs. I was the only man in the baby clubs. I would go there. I would push him in the push pram. I would drive him. We were around for that time. Then things got busy. Where it came to a point where it was feasible for my wife not to go back to work when we had a second child or a second son, and we just had to make a lot of things work. But I understood in that moment the power of just being present. Of being present. Like with what Kurt was saying, is that been busy? Like me and my wife right now, we live very busy lives. And even those are things that we're introspectively trying to look at and say, okay, look, how do we simplify our lives? I mean, before the pandemic, I was pastoring a growing church. Where I would leave home sometimes in the morning and come back late at night when my kids are sleeping. Because you're pastoring over people on other people's kids. And I have to put a stop to that, because there's nowhere in the Bible where Jesus requires me to do that. And pastors' kids oftentimes are often the kids that turn out the worst, because daddy, pastor, mommy, they're so busy with other people. And we've had to kind of reel that in a little bit. We don't want to repeat this, because both me and my wife, our fathers were never around. We didn't grow up with our fathers. So we don't want to be present, but not be present.
That's right.
Kurt was talking about his father was physically present, but I'm guessing maybe he wasn't emotionally present. And sometimes I have to weigh up, which is worse, to have a present father that shows no emotions, or to have no father at all, and then you're wandering in the dark trying to figure out, how do you deal with your emotions as a man? And I think for me, the part that, I have forgiven my father. I'm a Christian. I have forgiven my father. He doesn't make us best friends. I have a relationship with my older sister now. And even she went when me and her went for dinner a couple of weeks ago. I laid out how I felt growing up.
Yeah.
And she's so angry with my father.
Yeah.
Because she didn't know the impact of that on me. Because they grew up with him. If you understand, it was in their lives. So it's one of those things where you're grappling with the thoughts of, what would my life have been like if my father was there to show me some emotions? Whatever transpired between him and my mother, I believe that it should have been there for me, because what happens is that you feel that sense of abandonment.
Yeah.
It's abandonment. You know, I believe there's a lot of men and a lot of women who are dealing with abandonment right now. The importance of a father in a child's life, sometimes it is undervalued. And you know, I'm watching. I don't know if you guys have heard, and I'm kind of digressing a little bit, but I don't know if you guys have heard of Carbonation. This guy, Elijah Bishop, he calls himself the Free God. Is all over YouTube, man. Is this guy who created his own cult in the US? He got arrested literally recently, man. Bro, you need to do a show on that, man. I want to give you some. Like, I've been studying this guy, and
You ready?
and he's got all these young women, all these young guys in his house. They literally arrested him for rape. He's been doing this for about 10 years. He used to be a rapper, and he's got all these people, and he's doing madness. And a lot of this young men and young women, they've got no fathers. Some of them is put their videos on Pornhub. He's put up videos on Pornhub. Is the way he talks to the women, is rape them, is that kids with them. Man, I'm like, I haven't got a daughter, so I'm grateful for this. But I'm like, if I had a daughter, my daughter was in that situation. I don't care, preacher, no preacher, man. I'll put a few rounds in him, and you know, and I'll do funeral for free.
Straight.
Like real talk.
Cool.
Like, but this is what's happening when the fathers leave, when the fathers are not present. So much is happening in our world right now. And I'm thinking that with all the trauma that I had to deal with, you know, I was abused as a child. And I'm thinking, well, if my father was there, would that not transpired? So come on, you guys come out. Kurt would tell you, I protected my three boys. Oh man, man. If we go to a public toilet and a man just looks at him funny, man, I go pull out my chest, man. Like, you ain't looking at my sons, you know? So it's, you know what, man? I guess all of us were dealing with some trauma still. Because of lack of the father. So we're talking about what we learned from our father. I'm dealing with what I missed out from a father. Things like tying a rope. I've had to learn to tie a rope, and my boys are getting to the age now where I've got to teach them how to tie a rope, because every man should know how to tie a rope. It's just one of those unsaid things. Every man should learn to tie a rope. Every man should know how to fish, because it's a survival stuff, man. This is the things that we don't talk about in the Western world, but in Africa, I saw my grandfather. I was a young age, but I saw my grandfather running a farm. Couldn't speak a word of English, but he had one suit and one tie. He would dress up because he was trying to be English. He grew up during the time of, you know, when the Jews colonized and all that kind of stuff. And he grew up with that kind of sense of, maybe if I dress a certain way, I'll be accepted. But he worked hard. He worked hard with his hands, man. He was a farmer and a watchmaker. I saw that, but we don't have that in this generation anymore. And I believe that men, we need to go back and teach our kids how to be men.
Yeah, you're talking some stuff right now, boys, you know. And key word I picked up there, you know, presence. I think we said it on this channel before, actually. Presence over presence, you know what I mean? So your presence is required over presence. So buying gifts, you know, is not as important as your physical and emotional presence in any child's life. And, you know, I think we were talking about this on a few days ago, we did a video on a gentleman who has 33 kids of 17 baby mothers. And we're saying this is poverty. It's a poverty mindset, you know, because you cannot give all those children essentially what they need from you emotionally. You can be present, like you guys are saying. You can be there, but you can't be there emotionally present for all of these kids. Even present, I'm saying, is even being nice, because you can't be there at 17 different baby mamas. You know what I'm saying? Every baby mama's house. You can't be in all those places at once. You know what I'm saying? You're not God. You're one human being. And so the impact of his behavior might not be felt now, but those kids are going to feel it when they grow up. You know, as they're growing up through life, they're going to feel it. In fact, I'm even being generous again. They're going to feel it now, because as a kid, you do feel it. It's just that maybe it doesn't translate until you get older. You realize how much is translated into actions that you do as a young man as well. Curtis, you were going to, I know you wanted to go a little bit more deeper from the last point you made earlier on as well. You know, you were mentioning the fact that about just being there and you making sure that you're making those different choices as well. But I don't know if you want to go a little bit deeper, because I know you were talking about a few points.
I don't know. I'm just going to start digging. I mean,
go for it.
I can't put myself above anybody. I refuse to do that. But I'm going to be straight. I made a choice. Gene knows my history. You know my history. My history is not clear. It's not clean. I've had some curveballs sent by God, whip me off my feet. Let me tell you something, man. I wish I could go into it, which has left us in serious financial or economic difficulty. And it flipped, the tables were turned like, G, I spent a lot of years at home with the kids, whilst my wife, who had the earning power. And so my perception of a man actually came from media long before the internet. Because when I had my daughter, there was no internet. In fact, it just arrived on the scene. And Google was just about a thing. YouTube didn't exist. So I'm saying my sense of that came from Disney, came from American TV, it came from the EastEnders, it came from the odd show and the odd porno. Do you know what I'm saying? As to what a man is.
Come on.
I had dreams of being this guy that I picked pieces from all this mess and pieced it into myself and said, this is it. When my children arrive now, am I running ahead of the schedule, bro? Am I running ahead of the question? When my children arrived, my firstborn, suddenly I had a new dream to say she will be protected. If nobody is allowed to hurt her and she cannot be abandoned, I've now developed a new vision. And therefore, in order to fulfill I want her to be great. I want her to be, every man wants his daughter to be, or his child, or his son. I want her to be a footballer. I want her to be strong. I want her to be a great, whatever you want your daughter to be. I just had to be there to make that happen. Interestingly, G, I found that the church had some good things, and I'm still a church man, by the way, but it's also brought a lot more damage to their spiritual development.
Come on, you know where I stand on that, bro, man. Of course,
right?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with Jesus. It's people, right?
It's just church. It's just church. It's the church systems.
You understand? So I bring that up because I want people to understand that I was living for also people, because I take after my dad. So what I'm doing is I'm becoming self-aware, and I'm reorganizing some of the values within me. So one minute I'm like, I've got this dream, I'm going to be a protector, I'm going to be a provider, and the next thing you know, I'm stuck at home. But I've still got to produce this dream. And then I'm also stuck in a community that isn't really helping a man excel, but keeping you here where you're managed. And so your children follow. And I'm asking myself questions. It took me years to work it out. Like, actually, I've got to change my environment to survive. And for my children to actually get their head, instead of bobbing up and down in the water, I want them to swim and probably fly. I've had to change my environment. I've had to change my values. I've had to say this. I've had to. No. Let me drop it like this, and we'll take it from there. Let me take it from there. My children have showed me who Jesus Christ is and what and more importantly, what he's doing. That's where I want to go. Hey, listen, my dad was angry because he was tired. Racism, loss of attachment, oppression, and poverty, and the color of his skin. He's limited. He's swimming but not going anywhere. He comes home angry. My dad was, when we were young, angry. We loved him, but we were afraid of him. Do you know what I did? I was the same. My children were afraid of me as much as I was afraid of my dad, but I was upset and I was angry because my circumstances had changed. The dream wasn't being fulfilled.
Whew.
I'm going to tell you this. It is only supernatural why my mind started to change and say, hold on a minute, how are these kids seeing me? There's one particular thing that happened that made me realize, and that was something I was actually preaching to. I was formulating a sermon, and it came to me. There's one thing I want my kids to do, and that is I want my kids to know God.
Yeah.
The rest we'll deal with.
Yes, sir.
They're not going to know God unless they see me.
You have to model it.
I'm not talking about see God in me, you know. I'm saying they have to see me. The way they see me is how they're going to see God. So the dreams are failing. The values are changing. I'm tired. I'm disorientated. But I have to let them see God. So what that does, I had to surrender everything that I knew to be true and just say, the only thing that matters, G, is that they see God. So now I have to deal with my anger, which is still there because I'm a man. I'm a human, should I say. But I manage things in a certain way. I'm more thoughtful, I'm more mindful because I want them in a time of trouble, unlike what I was doing, I want them to see that they can come to me no matter what. And that is when they see God. That was the number one value that I worked out, and it was supernatural. God put it on me. It took time. It wasn't a one-day thing. He put this thing on me to say, they're going to only know me if you're forgiving, if you're one of those guys, you know, one of them dads that you can go to say, you know, I messed up again. Dad, I messed up again. Dad, I messed up again. Will they come? I wasn't always like that.
Come on, man.
And at the moment, they all come to me. At the moment, when I've stepped through that door, they'll talk to me. My son, he will come to me and talk to me. He's nearly my height after manners him. You know what I'm saying? My daughter, my eldest, who doesn't talk much, she will call me randomly to have conversation. And when she's struggling with certain things, she'll call me. So my job is being done. And I'm not changing course. I'm gonna leave that there for a minute.
Whew. Sheesh. Man. Yeah. Look, from my perspective, like we spoke about, you know, God and, you know, them seeing God, seeing you and then seeing God. Like, for me, mine was kind of reversed. And the reason I said that is this, that when I became a father for the first time, I mean, I've been a Christian for most of my life. You know, I've been a church goer for most of my life. You know, I got saved. I gave my life to Jesus after many, my wife just walking in. Hey, babes.
Many baptisms.
Many baptisms of fire. All right.
Yeah.
But when I, you know, and I've been pastoring, I've been working in ministry. But when I became a father for the first time, I really understood. I started to understand God. Because as a father, man, what you do, I mean, you love your wife, you love your mom, you love people around you, but the way that someone that not came out of me, but I came out of my loins, someone that's me, and I'm sitting right there. Like, I'm responsible for protecting, for providing for this young man. And knowing that I was abandoned by my father, but I have an opportunity, this is almost like a redemption, I have an opportunity to do better, to break a curse. It showed me aspects of God that I never heard from a sermon, or I can never read from any theological script or anything like that nature. I saw it; it was right there. There was an instance one day where I was going, so I was going to speak somewhere. My son was maybe 18 months old or whatever it is, or less. I don't know. And I was leaving the house, and I don't normally wear suits, but I was wearing a suit on this day, and I was leaving the house, and I went to get a hug from him, and he didn't want to come to me. And this time it was getting potty trained, so he was going to bed without a nappy and all that kind of stuff. You know, he didn't want to come to me. He said to me, "Daddy, dirty." And I'm like, "What do you mean dirty? What does that mean?" And because he saw himself, he didn't want to hug me because I was dressed in this nice two-piece, and I believe it was a tailored suit. So I was looking quite sharp. He didn't want to mess that up. And he said to me, "Daddy, it's dirty." I said, "No, you're my son."
That's it.
And I saw, like, my favorite scripture in the Bible that I've been preaching, that my first ever sermon I preached when I got saved and I mounted the pulpit, was from Luke 15, the prodigal son. And that has been my sermon for all my 20 years or so of ministry. Like, that came alive to me. How God sees us, how Jesus loves us, that came alive, because we see ourselves as dirty, as children, as broken, as messed up, but he sees us as whole, as pure, and as beautiful. So that showed me aspects of God that I never knew that no preacher, no bishop could ever explain to me, and obviously no father could ever show me. So for me, seeing that was like, man, this is precious. And what Curtis said as well, I'm an angry person naturally. I grew up very angry. I was that skinny kid when I was growing up from Africa, where people were fighting me all the time. And I was tired of getting beaten up and getting punked. And,
just because he's African.
Just because I was African, there was always a black kids that was beating me up. It was the Jamaicans.
I knew he was coming for you still.
Sorry, man,
it was the Jamaicans. Now they can't touch me now, man. Now the Jamaicans are now doing DNA tests saying, "Oh, I'm 20% Nigerian." Oh, man, get out of it. Get out of it. Trying to wear dashikis and listening to Afrobeats. Get out of it. Get out of it.
Leave us alone, man.
On a real. I mean, I love the Caribbean culture. My wife is Caribbean. I'm blessed, man. But on a real, I was tired. So I grew up very angry. When I first got saved, I went for almost 1 year of anger management. Stuff stored up, PTSD, things that I saw that no kid should see. Yeah. So I was angry. So sometimes, even the way I deal with my kids, sometimes when I'm under pressure, I'm like, I just need to do this, because there's that pressure to perform. There's that pressure to do this. You got pressure from church, from this, from that, from that. So it's only now that, and through the help of my wife and through the help of the Holy Spirit, I'm trying to just calm it down. Like, look, these kids, they would do something. The thing about my 3 boys is this: as crazy as it sounds, they've all got 3 different characteristics. But guess what? All 3 characteristics, and I told Curtis this before, all 3 characteristics, guess what? They're me. They're all 3 of them totally different. Yeah. Totally different. But all 3 of them are me. Yeah. So you can imagine what I've had to grow up with in terms of having different identities, depending on the weather. I change like the weather, But for me, it's a privilege to look at them and to dream of what they can be. To dream of what is possible in their lives. To create an environment where they can come and talk to us. Yeah. Like, I'm talking to my kid, and my wife is telling me, you got to talk to our kids about sex. And I'm just trying to shy away from it because no one talked to me about sex. I found out from as Curtis said, you're going to watch a porn film with your friends. You get a little VHS tape, so you slide into the VHS. Whoa!
I'm a man now.
Hands in your chest.
That's what I'm saying to you. And it was crazy. I don't know, man. And I don't know how for us as black men, how we, even from that perspective, I'm kind of digressing, but from that perspective, we're able to even love black women, because all we saw in movies, whether it's mainstream movies or whether it's sex films,
white women,
they were not black girls.
That's right.
I guess we all went to church back in those days, but now they don't go to church nowadays, but I don't know, but we didn't see none of that. Yeah. We didn't see black male father role models.
We didn't see lovely black women. We didn't see lovely, feminine, or whatever your taste. Black women.
And can I be honest with you? When the old scenario with Bill Cosby happened a couple of years ago, it hurt deep. And I think I mentioned it to you before.
Deep.
You know why? Because I was watching Cosby show in Nigeria. I was watching Cosby show in this country. He was the only black father I saw on TV. The only other black man I saw on TV was maybe Eddie Murphy or Richard Pryor or Mr. T, but they weren't fathers in their roles. Bill Cosby was a father. So even though in my 30s I saw what happened with Bill Cosby and accusations, that hit me hard. That traumatized me. Because he was the only one I saw that fit a certain role and that almost fit a gap in my life, even from a distance. So man, it's all good.
Kojo, I know you got some questions for us, you know.
Listen, as more of an addition, and then maybe the question will come out for me actually, because you guys are talking the realist right now, and I think it just kind of helps to hear you guys speak about this. So like I said, we spoke about this 2 weeks ago, and we're talking about the male identity, about it being observed and observing things that maybe my father didn't necessarily say to me directly. He said a few things to me, but I'm saying that a lot of the stuff I observed, I watched.
Yeah.
And whether the parent is there or not, you're observing other males' behaviors, and that is a contributing factor towards how we identify ourselves, right? So the importance of there being good role models who are black men is so important, and then you kind of just went on a good tangent, which was talking about movies, films, even pornography. Like there was like those things are all, whether they're negative or positive, they're teaching us something, especially from a young age where you haven't formulated your identity in its entirety. You're still building, you're still sculpting, you're still growing. And so that older generation that you might see around you, they have the power to kind of, in some sense, shape who you're going to become in some shape or form, without having to do the work to undo a lot of the stuff that we see. Go for it, Kos.
I want to challenge. I'm a very critical thinker, which gets me into a lot of trouble at times.
That's all right. Nothing wrong with that.
I don't think that we have to have examples around us all the time. I'm going to say this. Most of my friends, whether they be single parents or in their marriages or whatnot, I don't know anyone who's had it great. I don't know anyone, and these are the greatest people I know. I know a lot of married couples. I know a lot of dads, and they're all good parents. I think that people choose to do what they want to do. This is based on personality type and circumstance at the time. But if you want to look after your children, and if you want to be impacted by your children, if you want to learn, you will put yourself in a position of learning. If it's what you want. A lot of guys, unfortunately, are putting themselves out there to have a lot of sex because it's what they want. I know guys who've driven to the Midlands for sex. Just for those in America, that's 120 miles, which is a long way in this country. Do you know what I'm saying? There are guys that reserve their weekend for sex with random people. There are enough people out there who have downloaded an app and are scrolling when they should be hustling. Swiping right because they want what they want. There are people out there, they're doing what they've got to do to make their money, to buy the clothes that they want. What do you want? People do what they think is more important to them. So my belief is this, is that if you really want to have a relationship with your children, you will. Now, me as a dad, I made a decision. I'm not putting myself above anybody. I made a decision. It's been hard. I've never regretted it, but I have sweat blood in the process because it's not easy raising children, right? But the other thing it taught me was that, and I know it's in line with the question that we're asking, the impact of fatherhood is, I think, the second most, if not the most important lesson I've learned in my whole life is how God is dealing with me. You understand? Because I was, in some ways, immature in my life journey, judgmental. I used to judge people by how I was going to church, how much Bible.
I remember those debates, bro.
Bro, you remember me? Yeah, I knew a lot. Bro, he wasn't bringing my children or my wife close to me. All this knowledge, you know. He wasn't doing anything for anybody.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
Salvation by works, that's what it was. What I realized was, I remember sometimes, especially with my eldest, because she has been the most challenging, and not challenging, I don't have bad kids, but challenging for me because of my tolerances, right? She's a thinker. She doesn't just follow the status quo. She's like, well, why are we doing that? So you're talking to a West Indian man now, West Indian heritage. We don't deal with you debating with us. We give orders and you follow.
You follow, yeah.
Right. That's the number one thing for a Jamaican, whether you follow orders or not, right? One thing that I learned, though, in dealing with my kids is God must have had such a hard time. No, God is having such a hard time with Curtis. But I'm not dead. I recognize, remember I was saying a point earlier on. The point I was making earlier on was that my children are teaching me that I must present God to them in the way that I work with them. Because, and the second lesson is, that's how he's working with me. So when this revelation over time comes to me, I'm like, I have to show my children the same level of grace that God has given me.
Amen.
And if we as parents are not showing our children the model of Christ, there is no growth. I'm saying this, and I will challenge anybody. Kojo, if you want to bring them on, there's one lesson. If they're not bringing you closer to Christ in humility, you are not being a good parent.
He humbles you, man.
You can take it from here, G, because that's exactly what it's doing. I have to shut my mouth and say, hold on a minute. How am I going to deal with this situation? Because that's what God does.
Yeah.
How am I going to deal with Israel? How am I going to deal with Curtis? Curtis, you're ignorant, you know. No, God, I'm right. I'm doing very well. I will shout at my kids because I'm angry, because I'm justified, because I'm a parent. Yeah. I will be this autocratic guy. However, secretly, they were moving away from me.
Yeah.
They said there's a I think it's a well-known stat. For it started with the Romans. Give me a child until they're 7, and I'll give you the man. So children who are going to church, who you can see in their behavior whether they'll stay or not. From age 9, you can tell. 11, 12, you know where those children are. They will leave. They're not there. They've already left. So with that notion in mind, if my child is 10 years old and is struggling to understand who God is, then you know that they don't want a relationship with God. That's me. That's my fault. I know I'm shouting, people. I'm passionate. That's my fault. I've shown them who God is not. And they're running with it. When I realized that, I had to pull it back. My parenting style has changed. And when I change my parenting style, and as I still adjust, God is making more sense to me. I'll leave it there.
And you know what? God is making more sense to them as well, as you rightly said, man. You know, just to echo that, it is so, as I said to you, I'm naturally angry. Like one of the first things I told my wife when I met my wife over 21 years ago was that I'm an angry guy. A lot of things have been bottled up, and I'm angry, and I'm this and I'm that. And I never wanted to bring it into fatherhood. But you're talking about church. I've been pastoring for a few years now. And I'm going through what I call a renaissance. All right. I've been preaching about this for a while now. Being a child of God, it means something to me now differently than what it meant to me 3-4 years ago. Even as a pastor, I was trying to work to please him.
Yeah.
But I've realized that, and this is someone I know the Bible, I've studied the Bible, I preach the Bible, but it came to a point where it just felt like it was works. And I was almost expecting that from my own children.
Yeah.
So there's a huge correlation there. Because we go to churches and we sing "Is a Good Father."
Yeah.
But a lot of people can't deal with that song because there are flashbacks of their father and how their father deals with them. And sometimes their fathers are pastors and deacons and elders in the church.
Come on, bro. You preach.
You know, so, you know, I don't want to bring the church into this too much because I don't know the makeup of the audience. But the church has got to do you know, the church, we do a lot of stuff from relationships, marriages, and all that kind of stuff. The church does a lot of stuff. But the church doesn't teach how to parent. They don't teach how to parent. Can I be honest with you? The modern church is not conducive to a wholesome family.
Come on, bro. You're killing it, man.
That's one of the reasons, you know, one of the things that we're doing is we turn our church into house fellowships where you sit with each other, you break bread, and the kids play. Don't sit in the corner and sit over there. And, you know, because we put kids in children's church just to get rid of them so that we can have 2 hours of Aaron, a man or woman priest, so we can sing our favorite songs.
Yeah.
And it's almost like we're trying to detach. Let me tell you, the modern church is not conducive to a family.
Yeah.
Mommy and daddy, they go to every prayer meeting, leave the child at home with a bowl of soup, or drag the child along, put them in a pew with a phone in their hands for 10 hours.
Yeah.
I grew up in a Nigerian church. 10 hours is no exaggeration. Because we wanted fire to come. And then when the fire didn't come, you have to give up eventually. Everyone has to go home, right? You know? You have to go home, you know. And then you go back next week and wait for more fire.
Oh.
But what I'm trying to say to you is that even what this sacred thing called church, called following Jesus is beautiful. Following Jesus, if you follow Jesus, let me tell you something, it will make your family awesome. But if you build your life on a church, on a denomination, it will break your marriage and it will break your home. And I'm talking from the perspective of a pastor. The pressure is deep. The removal from reality is deep. Because now you want your kids to perform in church. They got to dress a certain way. You want them to perform in church. You're putting pressure on them. There was a time when I'm like, oh, I got 3 sons. Oh, man. Why should this one we had just 2 sons? I'm like, man, okay. All right. Those are my future pastors. I'm going to pray for in them to be pastors. Until I realize, man, I'm trying to kill my kids, man. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Now I want my kids to be anything but a pastor.
Yeah.
100. Recently, one of my children said to me, the oldest one, I don't know what the conversation was. We're having a conversation about church, and everyone's talking about. I think I was on a show. I think someone invited me to do a program or something, and I just finished doing it. And some people were confused about. People they were talking about church hurt, and I came from the perspective of like pastors also get hurt as well. All right. And some people are like, no, pastors don't get hurt. And then my son said, the church almost killed my dad or killed my parents. Because not knowing that we, you know, when we came home and we were tired and we were burnt out and people were talking about us, he was hearing it. But I'm so glad that even at a young age, he has such a beautiful relationship with Jesus that didn't affect him or push him away from Jesus. He just wanted to know Jesus himself. So this is important as fathers, wherever your role is, wherever your career, your occupation is, whatever you do, make sure that it doesn't destroy your children, especially for those who are in the church.
Yeah.
Point your kids to Jesus, not to a church, because the church, they will kill your kids.
Straight.
I'm done.
You can go for it, guys. You want to go for it?
Bro, you want to keep me going? I mean, look. I got a few things to say. I've been just making some notes. I'm not gonna keep going, but I sit down with my son, like, yeah, my 2 eldest ones. I sit down with them and I have conversations with them about this was my dad, this was my mom. This is what my mum did wrong. This is why she did it wrong.
Come on, man.
She didn't deal with certain things. My mum fell into levels of depression. My dad doesn't know how to handle that. We're talking about 30 odd years ago, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to handle that. What does a Jamaican know about depression? You just move through it, right? My mum's a British woman. She falls into depression. She's been dead 12 years, by the way. It's about 12 years. I watched them struggle through it. So there must be a subconscious positive impact there. They did it badly, but they did it. You know, I teach them. I say, you know, when you've got problems, you've got to talk. You have to talk to me. I swear to you now, don't let your problems be there if you don't talk to me.
Come on, man.
I will die for you. I need you to know that. So they have got in their heads that my dad will be there. And that I'm not playing with. But I sit down and break down to them the mistakes of my parents and their parents. I let them know, well, you know, my grandma came from here, so she wouldn't know how to X, Y, and Z. My dad did the same thing. My mum did this, and I've made that mistake. I have these conversations with my kids. I'm not playing. Like, they must not willingly repeat certain mistakes. And then in that, I teach them grace. Now, this is a deep thing. Because I'm now teaching them, you know, this is who my dad was, this is who my dad is, because they love their granddad to peace. They love their granddad more than they love me. You understand? There's no justice in the world.
Come on,
man. Because my dad has changed.
Yes.
Right? Once a man, twice a child, right? And I explain that journey. My dad doesn't even remember a lot of what happened. Interesting. So I have to then teach a level of grace. People change. So don't take the mickey, don't bully, don't hurt, and don't laugh at people's misfortune. It's, especially with Caleb, it's coming from somewhere, bro.
Come on, man.
When you see people moving mad, it's coming from somewhere. You think I'm just teaching them? I'm teaching me. This is what the kids are doing to me, bro. They're teaching me to teach the truth about life. Yeah.
It's a lot. You know, it's a lot what you guys are saying. And you know, you've made some great points about, you know, the impact. Or I was actually going to say, no, I was going to comment on what you were saying around Curtis about about people choosing to do differently. Because you said about having that moment where you know, God says to you that kind of reveals it to you that, you know, basically, you know, your kids are going to basically see, they need to see you first before seeing me, right?
Yeah.
But that in itself is a self-awareness piece, right?
It is.
And PG2, he's also on a self-awareness as well with us, right? This is why we're on the channel, because those of us who are drawn here are drawn because we have a level of self-awareness, no matter what we go through. And as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, there's a blessing that's seemingly hidden in that you are born in a particular way, your nature versus your nurture, that you have an aspect that allows you to be more self-aware than some of your cohorts.
Yeah.
Because some of the things that you both have been through, I've never been through. So I can't tell you that my life hasn't been that tough in terms of some of the stuff you don't go through. Yeah. But I would say that we all have a great self-awareness about ourselves. There's almost a gift given onto us, hence why we're in the healing business. Not necessarily healing of touching of hands, but of minds. Because the aspect is of seeing what a mind is supposed to think, feel. We can determine that and break it down for other people. But there are so many men, especially if we're talking about men, I want to talk about men because it was my fatherhood. Like when I'm trying to deal with Red Pill and Manosphere and all this nonsense, Kevin Samuels passed, rest in peace, or anything like that. But a lot of men were following this guy because they didn't have self-awareness. Because Curtis, you said yourself from early, You didn't just take any information and just do it. That in itself is a gift when I think about it, because why would you from a young age not just take in what someone said to you? Why would you not be impressionable? You know, of course there are parts of us that are impressionable, but I'm saying, why would we, as us four sitting here, why would we not just take in anything that was told us? Why do we have this level of self-awareness that allows us to feel like, do you know what? Maybe and you're going. I know I'm going wrong, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm already there.
But you know what? A part of that is this. Look, I've got 2, 3, 4 brothers-in-law. Emmanuel, Dean. Got a good friend Cameron. I've got Eli. I've got. That's 5 men. Yeah. We're all broken men because we've all got a funny background. We've all got our proper mess going. That's happened, right? But together, just a word here and there, just mixing the kids together has allowed us to come up a certain way. It's like a billionaire will say to you, your success is dependent on your friendships. And so the people that I hang around are people that are who have a heart for same dream. So we're really influencing each other. Like, you won't see me hang around people that I wouldn't have my kids around.
Why not?
Bro.
I'm saying, why not?
Sorry, you just got my heart racing because
No, I'm saying, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying, why though? Why did you choose that path? That's the question I'm asking, because we've all been through stuff. You and PG have been probably for more than I've been through.
But you know what?
But why do you choose that path?
Look, you know what? I'm going to answer a bigger question. I don't want to hold the mic too long, but
do it.
There's something about holding your child when they're born. There's a trigger that takes place for most people.
Yes. Yeah.
But you have to remember, some guys are so damaged they cannot handle it. You understand? Like, some of us, with our personality type, with our environment, and with the pain that we received, we cannot sit around family. Just like some people cannot sit around church. They cannot sit in the people are running from church, man. It's too much guilt, too much pressure. They can't do it. It's pain. And they will, having kids is not about people trying to have kids. They have sex, and then the kids is the product. When the kid comes, it's like, I can't do this.
I wasn't looking for this.
They're not ready. And don't get me wrong. Yeah, it's easy to say, well, you've had this baby, take responsibility. Man, you think everyone's taking responsibility? Even some mothers who have children are not taking responsibility.
Yeah.
For their emotional well-being, and for the men that they're bringing in the home, for the music that they're allowing them to listen to. Everyone's at fault here. Because remember, the woman that lied with the guy that wasn't prepared is just as guilty. So some guys can't handle it. And we're just sticking to the men. But remember, I've got a friend group that I chose.
That's the word. That's what I'm looking for. But why did you choose them, Curtis? Something in you already existed.
I'm lucky. I'm blessed. They were there. Benka was there.
The word you said earlier on is this key. I know we're not doing Christian stuff, but we're doing Christian stuff. We're doing Christian stuff. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're all Christians. They're gonna get it.
Open your Bibles.
They're gonna open it. You know what I mean? They're gonna get it. They're gonna get it today. Because the reason why I'm saying that is because there is a grace on your life, PG's life, and my life. There's also a responsibility, because what we're dealing with is generations of men who are blind. Because what you're talking about is having sight, the ability to illuminate your mind to say, this thought pattern is wrong. This thought pattern is not correct. It's a level of grace. I'm saying that me, you, and PG have a responsibility that maybe a few years ago I was trying to run away from, but now I realize the responsibility, because there's someone on the other end, KS, unfortunately he's passed, someone on KS who doesn't mind dragging men along with him to a path of destruction. Right? PG was saying it earlier on. Some of us men don't even know how to love our own women. And it's because a lot of these men, their mind is blocked. But you and I have an ability that, even though we know something, we have the ability to see what is right and wrong. Is actually a revelation. Because when we become Christians, it is the illumination of the choice that gives you power. Do you know what I mean? When you weren't a Christian, you didn't have the choice because you were following whatever your flesh said to go with. But when you become a Christian, it's the illumination of there is a different path to what you're seeing. You can choose something else. That's self-awareness. That's a gift.
G, I know you haven't said point, but let me throw something. Let me throw something. I'm gonna go very heavy now, right? I was in a
let me put my robe, man. Let me put my robe. Where's my robe?
You gonna get your towel, sir.
Come on, man.
I was in a jacuzzi today. A couple guys I haven't seen for over 2 years in there. They're older than me, about 10 years older than me. We just started talking about the black life. And we started talking about, as soon as I said to them, I'm a social worker, I work with X, Y, and Z, they're like, oh, and it went into, and then we was talking about abuse. Yeah. And the fact is that 80% of abuse happens in the home with people that we know.
Yeah.
At least 80%. And we're talking about the Western world here, yeah? America, UK, Europe. And this guy is muscles, nice guy. He's a guy's guy. And there's another guy there, and he's probably about 60. And we was all talking. You know what? This is what we all said. The guy said, I'm going to be straight. Listen, I'm preparing you all, yeah? Trigger warning. You might want to turn off for 10 seconds, okay? But I'm saying it. That's all right, Kojo. He goes, yeah, so I'm there. My mum's left me with the uncle and the cousin. So the uncle's got a son. And he goes, she's left us because she's gone to work. And we were like, we don't want to go. Left us there. When we're there, he goes, this is what he said. He goes, my brain has got a very good way of blocking things out. He goes, I remember just looking, this is exactly as it happened. This is what he said. He goes, I remember I was looking outside and the moon was shining and a guy put his dick in my mouth. I've been very straight, right? And I sat there and I was like, whoa. Then the guy to my left now goes, yeah, because my auntie was abusing us and my uncle was abusing us for years. And I'm sat between these two guys who've been raped for years. And I'm like, shoot, boy, it's happened to me as well. Not rape though. Sexual abuse. When I was a kid, and I remember it. And I know that and then he was saying, there was things that happened to me that I know happened, but I can't remember. You understand that? Now, when I was young, sexual abuse, who had a voice? Bro, when we were young, because we're at that age, innit? There was no voice. So I would say, and then I point them to this video that I watched on TikTok, about a year and a half ago, where this woman said, I'm convinced that in every home and in every church, there's a pedophile. Why am I bringing this up? Let's go deep a little bit. Some guys cannot do it because sexual abuse is prolific, not just against girls, but against boys too. The death penalty won't stop it. Culture and religion, and even the pulpit won't stop it. So you got a lot of people around who ain't saying nothing. And one of the symptoms of that is when guys are promiscuous. It's because of the sexual abuses they've received. 100. And I'm putting this to say that I would love to have my kids, but I don't know how to do family because I'm broken. Church is not safe. Home is not safe. You expect me to be a great dad. Some of us can do it, some of us cannot. I'm not saying to you, Kojo, that you should know better. I'm just pointing out that there's another spin on that. I'm not putting down anything you said at all.
No, even.
Yeah, it's just that there's a side to broken men that exists that we haven't spoken much about. That's probably another show, but I'm just saying, it's happened to me. It's happened to so many of my family members. And we've all gone through life saying, hi, happy Sunday, happy Sabbath. Preaching on the stage and singing in the choir and stuff, but actually, what's playing in the back of our mind is madness. And so the only way to cure it is alcohol, drugs, and sex. But to sit down and be mindful about how I'm going to love my child, no, I can't do that. So these are that's one factor as to why men sometimes just cannot do family. They can only make them. Sorry, that was too heavy.
No, it wasn't. Right platform for it. PG, jump in, man.
Look,
Right
man,
platform
like
for it.
when my wife was pregnant with our first child, I remember being very fearful, and there was no one to talk to at that point. Actually, I think Curtis, I'm not mentioning to you because you already had you already had 2 kids by that time. But I went to the bookstores, bought all the books that I could on how to be a father, because I was scared to death. All right, we lost our first pregnancy, so there was some trauma already attached to that. So now here we are. We're having a successful second pregnancy, and okay, things are moving forward. And I'm excited. I'm praising God. I'm praying. I'm interceding. Like, God, give us, let everything be smooth. Let's go all the way. Let's have a healthy child. Let mother and child be good. But there's a part of me that was scared because all the books I'm reading, nothing's making sense.
Wow.
Because it was so airy-fairy. The books would talk about how, as a father, speak to the granddad or speak to the granddad. There is no granddad. Do this, do that. I'm like, it's not going to work in this scenario. So I was scared to bring a child into this world. As a man.
Yeah.
As a man, like it was crazy. Like, I cried when all our sons came out, because when I saw the little penises, I'm like, oh, thank you. Someone like me couldn't do well with having a female child.
Deep, bro.
For many, many reasons. Because I know what happens to young girls.
Yeah.
Yes, it happens to men as well, but I know what happens to young girls. I know the uphill struggle, the sexualization in society of young girls. I didn't want that. I didn't want to a case where my child is growing up and she's getting a little breast, a little bum, and guys are I don't know what to do. I'm too angry to deal with that in this world. So God saved me and saved a lot of people,
Man.
by just giving me boys. But in saying that, at the same time, as Curtis spoke about, as a young man who was abused as well by a man and a woman. And growing up, I never told anybody until I met my wife.
Yeah.
Like, what do you tell that to?
Yeah.
You tell it to your boys? Nah. But years later, I found a lot of my boys were abused. A lot of the toughest gangsters you see in London, they've gone through some stuff. They were damaged. Somebody dropped them.
Yep.
And they became angry. So we speak about places not being safe. I don't think nowhere is safe. And as a man, you have this need to protect. So it's almost like you feel like you're trying to protect without any weaponry in your hands. Your hands are tied. We live in a society where hands are tied to protect our loved one.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of men struggle with this, man. And this is why I believe like therapy and counseling is very good for men. There is a reason why there's a higher suicide rate in men, especially black men.
Yeah.
Because everything is bottled up.
Yeah.
Everything is a secret. Everything it never happened. You imagined it. And we're trying to bring up children. We're trying to tell them, like, you know what? Be open, be frank. My wife asks, like, even in nursery, if someone takes our kid to the nursery and they what? No, we send an email or we go to the nursery. Because we told our kids, you know what? If you're going to tell it, you go by yourself. If you do this, you do it by yourself. Because we don't even want the Bible talks about flee from the appearance of sin. We don't want the appearance of it to be around our children. And maybe that's because of what I've been exposed to and having a father to do the protecting. You understand that? And back to your earlier point, Kojo, as well. I do believe that, because sometimes I look at certain men, I'm like, come on, wake up, man.
Yeah.
Wake up. But you're right, though. I do believe that something has to happen in our lives. And I love what the psalmist says in the Psalms. And it says that the entrance of your word, or the unfolding of your word, it brings light and it brings understanding to the simple. And I believe that if we're people in darkness, there's no way the mind could be illuminated. But the crazy thing that we have in this world now is that oftentimes the people who shout the most and say that they have the most light are actually the ones in the most darkness. So a lot of our scholars, modern day scholars, a lot of our modern day experts are talking from a place of darkness and brokenness.
Mm.
But because they have the loudest voices, it becomes the norm. Now, I don't know much about KS, Kevin Samuels, may so rest in peace. I only knew about him after he passed away. It wasn't sort of the kind of content that I consumed. I just didn't know much about him. But I've known a lot of people like him.
Yeah.
All right. And again, that comes from a broken place. It comes from certain things. And I watched some of his videos. But I saw a lot of following by a lot of men. Men loved what he was saying. Just like this other man I mentioned to you as well that's got arrested, this carbonation guy, they call him Nature Boy, something Bishop. All right. You've got a lot of men who want to be like him, because the way he talks down to, he's got all these women around him, he's having sex with all these women, they're all his wives. But he breaks down this man, he destroys their souls. He says he's the second coming of Jesus, he's a Messiah. He calls himself God. And you've got broken black men who are looking to him as a Messiah. Now, what's happened now their life's narrative is now based on his philosophy. And what is that spewing out? More broken men. We're breaking each other. We're destroying each other. Now we're destroying our women. I just want you guys to just check this out, man, on YouTube, because it is so insane. I had to pray before I watched the video of him today, because a lot of it's demonic. I won't tell people to watch this. A lot of it's demonic. It's spiritual. It's demonic. But that's happening all around us. And part of me is angry also because the church has been sleeping. So you've got these people offering people an alternative spiritualism. And people drawing towards it. People are sending them money. And I'm watching this and I'm like, where did the human mind get to this place? But I'm like, but people grew up fatherless. So at the age of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60s, they're still looking for approval of a father.
Yeah, that's right.
And they will do anything to get approval.
That was me.
They will do anything to get approval. Because I didn't have a father around, I was trying to get approval from other men.
Wow.
Man, some people that went through some of the things I went through, they might not even be heterosexual right now.
Yeah.
Because looking for proof from men. So I would join certain gangs, and I would have older, what we call them the big boys or the uncles. We have them around us, and you do whatever they say. You do this, you do that. So we have to fix society. And this is what hurts me about the church. The world is broken. There is a content maker on YouTube. His channel is called Soft Underbelly. I don't know if you guys heard of him. So you've heard of him, Koja? It is so deep, man. I've even paid for his app so I can watch, because when I watch those stuff, look at men and women, a lot of the stories are similar. Abused by parents, abused by this, absent father, or abused by the father. Now they become prostitutes from the age of 14. Then they have a pimp, because I'm trying to understand, how could a woman give herself to a pimp and he's beating her, taking all the money? But you know what? We're trying to get approval. Everyone's trying to get approval, man. But you know, the most beautiful thing about this world is this: that God already approves of us. He approves of us. And unfortunately, we have some churches who are still very much preaching a message that you have to do this to please God. You have to spin around to speak God. You have to do this and it's so it destroys people's souls, man. And someone says, can't fix your mentality, it needs deliverance. I understand that. And deliverance is powerful, but we have to be careful even with deliverance, because I've seen deliverance ministry in churches. I've been part of it. It destroys people. It destroys. I've seen people get beaten, get slapped in the face, get punched, because people are trying to get deliberate evil from them. But I didn't see Jesus do that in the Bible. I saw Jesus love people until that demon left them. I see Jesus stoop down low to meet a broken woman until she was delivered. See, we got to be careful. I know we're talking a lot about church as well, but I believe that the church perpetrates a lot of what we're talking about right now. It undergirds some of this stuff. Some of this hard macho men, like, I'm a father. They love when they go to church on Sundays. They're deacons in church. They're nice with other people's kids. Oh, look at you. But they're horrible to their kids. They abuse their kids. Yes, you gotta I discipline my kids. I'm growing 3 boys. I want to make sure that they've got it together, but I always have to show them love. But some parents, they just borderline or all the way abuse their kids. Their kids can't talk about what happened in school. Their kids can't say this, they can't say that. So someone just said, Abba Father, we need you. Yes, 100% we need you. We need him in the lives of our men, of our fathers. We need him. You know, we have so much information. I was saying to my wife yesterday that in the church, in the modern church, we have so much information and entertainment, but that's a different story. But we have so much information, but there's no transformation. Because all we want to do is we want to grow in knowledge so that we can show off the knowledge we have rather than being transformed by the knowledge that we have.
The renewing of our minds.
We're not renewing our minds at all. We have this thing where we're just converting knowledge so that we can prove to other people that, look, I've got this, I know that. We know a lot, but a lot of people don't know God, because God is a good father. He's a good father. And I believe that we are struggling to raise men to emulate the father that God shows to us as humans, as men and women. We're struggling because I don't believe people truly know God. We have an illusion of God. We have our own denominational perspective of God, and we run our families like we run our lives like that. And for me, it almost took a pandemic to say, okay, you know what? Let's chill out a little bit. Maybe it's not this deep. It's not this deep.
He saved you, right?
It saved me, right? And I go back, because everyone's still talking about, well, the world is crazy. I'm like, but John 3:16, the most basic of scripture, still states, for God so loved the world. And the beautiful thing is, the world that God loves was a broken world, was a damaged world, but he still loved it, right? And he sacrificed for that world. What are we going to do to help bring this healing process? We have to love.
Yeah.
We have to show concern.
Yeah.
We have to help other men rise up. Because what other men are seeing out there on the film, on the TV, out there with some of the rappers, unfortunately, is that broken people are leading broken people. And we're then all just broken. And I'm not saying, because all of us are broken, but we're leading each other not into a place of healing, but we're leading each other into a place of even further brokenness. Because what we're speaking, what we're showing, what we're emulating is not truth. We are basically echoing our hurt. We are portraying our hurt, reflecting our hurt to other people. So, you know, boom.
I just want,
guys, I'm the tallest, so why do I look like the shortest? What's going on?
bro, it's your camera. You pump up the camera, you drop the camera.
That's perspective for you. Go on, guys.
That perspective, sir.
There were some points. I'll just go through them quickly. I'll just reflect.
Go for it.
Someone asked a question really early in our session about depression. How do we deal with it? And I guess we've all been in that place at some point. And for me, I was in and out of depression, but I was functional.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been there too, bro.
But yeah, I didn't know it, but I could feel it. Didn't have enough knowledge around it. And that's when the children, in my lack of foresight, lack of knowledge, that's when the children saw the worst in me. I'm not a violent person, so I don't want to make out that, you know, but, you know, I've always been very close to my children, but I was not the nicest, you know, I wasn't as reasonable, short-fused, and I'll be honest about it. I'm going to go into that honesty as well. The other thing that I'm prepared to talk about a lot more than what I am. I will do it more so in private groups. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I genuinely am caring less about what people think about me or my past. And why did I say that? It's because my mental health is important. And I'm teaching my children that being transparent about life is what will save them from a lot of problems. Being honest and transparent. So I tell them what I'm going through privately, or sometimes we might sit around the table on the odd occasion and just share about what we're going through. I do that. I don't want children to be confused or shocked by depression or fear or any kind of sin. It means a lot to me. But not caring about what people think, which is one of the reasons why I left the big congregational setting. Not that I care now, but I am who I am. I'll share a lot more of my thoughts with people. And that's what we plan to do on our platform that's coming back soon. So, you know, watch out for it on the 8th. The last thing I want to say is I'm saving... Oh, no, here we go. Yeah, because I'm saving my family. But the last thing I want to say is the impact of fatherhood on becoming a man. I would say the impact of fatherhood on me as a man is that words mean nothing. It's our actions. And so I've learned that I have to say less and do more.
100, man. 100.
Yeah.
100.
I cannot tell my children about the grace of God. I cannot tell them about being great or being disciplined if they're not seeing it.
100.
People will never understand what it is. I know that some of us may not be Christians on this show, but you understand the logic, right? You cannot tell people about how good something or someone is, and then you've never displayed it. How are you going to, what's the concept? What does it look like in practice?
Yeah.
What does discipline look like?
Yeah.
What does love look like? What does a good relationship look like?
Yeah.
The other day, I was preaching in a church up in Milton Keynes, and the sermon was, what are we showing our children? What marriage looks like.
Yeah.
And someone said, interestingly, I want to see couples have arguments. And I get it. Our children see us argue. They hear it, but they hear it when we fix it too. So they know how to repair things when they're broken. So, I don't need to sit down and tell my kids, this is what love is. I have to show them. So I don't have to keep preaching all day long. I want to shut up now.
All right.
Well,
Listen,
my wife comes to look up at the camera. The camera's all the way there.
We're almost at the end, so I know we probably have to do a part 2 because I know there's a lot to chop up on this subject. There's a lot to chop up on. Do you know what I mean? And I think this will be helping a lot of people. So I guess maybe ask my final question to kind of bring it roundabouts. For you, one important lesson that you've grown up as a man that you realize, or let me put it easiest way, just one lesson that you feel like as a man you've learned, either through your dad or for your own, maybe your own experiences, that you feel is important that other men also grasp as well. You know, one lesson.
If I was to go first, I would say to forgive yourself.
Mm.
You know, you have to forgive yourself. You know, I think sometimes we find it easier to forgive other people than actually ourselves. You know, and when I look at scripture, I don't mean to preach, but you know, when when Jesus says, you know, love your neighbor as yourself, and I was trying to bring that to people and say, like, look, you can never love others until you learn how to love yourself. You can never forgive or show grace to other people because grace has to flow out of you. All right. Okay. It has to flow out of you. The reason why Jesus is able to bring peace into our lives is because he is the Prince of Peace. He himself is peace. So everything that we give out to other people must flow through us. Learn to forgive yourself. All of us as men, whether because of our own choices or things that we had no control over, our brokenness, our hurts, someone dropped us some point in our life. We did things, we said things, we chose certain paths of life, and now we've grown older and we're looking back with regrets. But those regrets are also staying with anger towards ourselves for not doing better. We did, and I think Curtis alluded to it earlier, that, you know, whether it's our parents or ourselves, we did what we did based on what we had or what we saw, or you know, we were mirroring what was around us. So I believe, and if I can, you know, for everybody, male, female, mothers, fathers, children, wherever you are, to forgive. So that's one thing I've learned, and I'm still learning it right now, to forgive. To forgive myself, decisions I made as a husband, as a father, as a pastor, as a son, as a business owner, as a whatever I am, in every sphere, with every hat that I wear. We all make mistakes along the way. So learning to forgive yourself, and forgive yourself quickly, so that it doesn't simmer in your mind, and this negative force and this toxic thoughts come into our mind, and then we kind of decapitate ourselves, and we move ourselves from the path that God has us in, the path of healing and restoration. Because sometimes we can talk out of ourselves out of being redeemed. We can. Because God himself has given us that release, that forgiveness, but we talk ourselves out of it. That I'm not worthy of this. I shouldn't be. You know? So that's something that I've learned, and I'm still learning, and I'm trying to do better with it. Because if I can show myself more grace, then I'll be able to show a lot more people grace, especially my children. Because as free young black men, they will make some mistakes in life. No matter how much we're trying to, you know, just protect them and put them in some kind of bubble, they will make some mistake, because one day they're gonna have to go into the big bad world. And we as parents have to be able to forgive them and teach them to forgive themselves. Because when people forgive themselves, then they can have dialogue, then they can open up and talk and be transparent and be honest. And then ultimately make better choices in life.
Mm. My answer would be learn how to critically reflect. So it's the ability to look at your experiences, look at your challenges, look at your feelings, and ask yourself questions. And critical reflection is a powerful tool in the learning process of life. If you can't answer certain questions like, why am I doing this? How did it make me feel? Is it of benefit? Is there something I could have done better? Is a tool that we use in social work, and it's a tool that we try to get parents to use. And it's actually a part of me becoming a social worker. Without being able to do that, I wouldn't have passed my course. You have to ask yourself why you do what you do. And I think you'll find answers that way. When I was younger, I didn't have that power. But if anyone who is on a journey now, you can actually do a lot better than I have. And I'm doing a really good job. Benga's doing a really good job. You can do a lot better than us if you start now. So just learn to critically reflect, or be honest with yourself about it. And actually, if you have a partner, talk about it with them, about how you feel, or choose someone safe to do that with. Yeah.
Wow.
So, Kojo,
Listen. Yeah.
Kojo, can I just say one thing? I just saw a question from a lady. Maybe obviously, I'm happy to do a part two. But there was a question by a lady. It says, "What can single mothers do to help young men?" Can I just touch on that just for like literally like 10 seconds? There's probably like 1,000 things that single mothers can do for young women. And first of all, I want to applaud you. You know, I grew up with a single mother, and God bless you, and God give you strength. It's not easy for a single mother to bring up a young man. I know that, and my mother obviously knows that. But one thing I'll say to you is this: one, the first thing is, don't bring any useless men around that young man.
Gonna say.
That will undo every work that you've done. God's giving you grace to do what you're doing, but if you bring someone out there, it is better not to have a man in that young man's life than to have the wrong man in his life. It undoes all the wonderful work that you've done. All right, but there's probably like hundreds and other advice I can maybe offer. I can't say give, because I can offer it, because I'm not a single mother. I grew up under a single mother, and just from my own perspective and my own perspective as a man, who's speaking to people's lives and things that have helped other people. But I guess the first thing is, don't bring someone that's going to be a bad role model, or someone that's going to talk down to you in front of your son. That damages a young man. Yeah.
Word.
Curtis, you want to answer as well?
I would have said that. Protect your environment.
Protect your environment.
I mean, we're actually planning to develop a course. We are in the process. Let me use the English language properly. We are preparing a course for people who are single. Okay. And that will be launched in the next few weeks. We'll be going live in the next few weeks on This Is Marriage UK on Instagram. And, there are a lot of single mothers out there, especially in the Black community. You cannot be making the same mistakes over and over. And in my line of work, there are mothers out there who have chosen a man over their kid, even though the mother's provided for the man over the child. And my encouragement, don't do that. Obviously, that is as bad as a man that's having a child and just walking away. It really is just destructive. Protect your environment, learn from your mistakes. And it's better, there's a way to be single in preparation, at least, but be careful about these decisions. It's hard. Why? You're good women. You're good women. This is the thing. The thing is that you are designed to be in relationship, and that nature is strong. And with the right man, you are very powerful. It's just that sometimes that desperation goes a bit too far and you make bad choices. That's everybody. This is not just about single women. This is everybody. Just be careful about those choices. Yeah.
And I want to tag on to something you just said right now, because I think it's quite important that, just to give, kudos to Kojo for what he's doing on this platform, and, and to also my brother as well, Curtis, for what they do with This Is Marriage. My wife, she's a psychotherapist, so she sits with a lot of people, even a lot of men, to uncover and to deal with past hurt. I would encourage people. It doesn't have to be my wife. I know she's snowed under right now anyway, but reach out to a therapist. If people do want my wife's details, they can contact Kojo, and then we can make that happen if she's going to space. I don't know. But also, we do something. We just set up a new charity called Our Street Child. And the reason why I'm saying that is this, because it's working with street children in Africa and in South America. A lot of kids that end up on the streets from the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they run away from home, they're kicked out from home because of the family setup. Oftentimes because of abuse, oftentimes because of an absent father, an abusive father, a father who's trying to rape some of the stories, the harrowing stories I've heard is of young girls, age of 9. I've got a 9-year-old, 9, 10, 11. The father's raping them. or their stepfather's raping them, and they have to leave and end up on the streets and to be raped on the streets. The trauma that's around that. If you want to find out, it's a brand new charity which is launched. Just type in Our Street Child online. We're just setting up. You can follow us on Instagram as well, Our Street Child. But this is part of the reason why we're doing this is because we live in a broken world and so many people are broken. If we all can do just a small piece, just to help somebody. I don't mean save somebody because we can't save nobody. Only Jesus saves. But if we could just help somebody, if we can just be a blessing to somebody's life, if we can make somebody's life a little bit brighter, because this darkness is overwhelming in a lot of people's lives, man. And it shows itself in multiple ways, in a diversity of ways, through drug abuse, through trauma, through all this kind of stuff that we see, through suicidal thoughts or even suicide. But we have to be light. The Bible talks about us being light, salt and light. We have to push back against that darkness, man. And doesn't mean, I'm not saying you have to be some kind of priest or some kind of whatever. I'm having more impact away from the pulpit than I've had on the pulpit, because I'm touching people's lives. We're feeding the homeless. We're helping the broken. We're sponsoring orphanages in India. We're doing things, not to gloat, but we can all do something. Because every one of us is broken, all over the world, broken, so broken, man. Yeah. Man.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's got some lamb steaks waiting for me, man. Some lamb chops.
You've gone and done the work, sir. You can go now and chop easy. You know what I'm saying?
Come on now, man.
But listen, audience, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Curtis and PG, thank you for joining us also as well, because it was a good conversation. We'll do a part 2 as well, because I think people are invested now and they want to hear more conversations like this. And I think it's important as well for men to hear this kind of conversation as well. So we'll organize our part 2 and get deeper once again as well. Audience members, thank you again. It's been exciting. It's been a lovely time. We'll see you again tomorrow when we have our conversation. I know you guys are turned up for tomorrow's conversation. I said, why did my dad tell me that a man should name the child, not a woman? It's going to be interesting to hear what they're going to say. It's going to be interesting what they're going to say tomorrow.
The Bible, right?
Oh, man, it's going to be tight. Oh, man, tomorrow's going to be warfare. Man. So tune in. I know you guys will all have your opinions. Tune in. Be ready to give your opinions as well, because we'd like to hear them. And we'll definitely have a good discussion tomorrow night. So that will be at, I believe, 6 p.m. EST, so 12 o'clock midnight for us at UK time. I know the UK people are probably thinking that's a bit late. I know. But again, we'll see you again very soon. Again, PG and Curtis, thank you so much. Audience, it's been blessed. But we'll see you again very, very soon.